welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm Joanna Kleinman, psychotherapist and CEO of the Mastering Your Mind Coaching and Consulting Company. So, last night I returned home from truly one of the most powerful experiences of my life. So this was my glamping retreat in the breathtaking Red Rocks of Sedona, Arizona, with 14 extraordinary women. And I used a company called Canyons and Chefs for the food and the tents and the guiding of the hikes. And it was truly exquisite in every way. Luxury tents with full-size beds and gourmet meals under stars that truly felt otherworldly. So it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. But what truly made this retreat what it was not the setting, it was the transformation. So there are really no words big enough to capture the magnitude of what unfolded because the vortex energy of Sedona really cracked all of us open, layer by layer. And each of us stepped into a new dimension of power and freedom and truth. And I want to share what opened up for me on the retreat. Now, it's vulnerable and it's raw because when you ask the Sedona vortexes for a message, woo, they give it to you straight. So, at the very beginning of the retreat, um, something happened that really cracked me wide open. So there were a few people that did not have their expectations met and they were disappointed. And the moment that I felt that energy of their unmet expectations, my inner critic showed up fast. Now, I call my inner critic worrying Wilhelmina, and Wilhelmina does not tiptoe in. She stormed into the room inside my mind and she whispered this same old story she's told me for my entire life, that you have to fix this and you have to explain and you have to make everyone happy or they'll leave you. So her voice was sharp and familiar and piercing, and I could feel it like this weight on my chest, right? The heat of the shame rising in my body and the tightening in my throat, and that instinctive urge to scramble and smooth everything over and make sure that no one was upset with me, because if they were, there's a part of me that believed I wouldn't be safe. Now, that's not a conscious feeling that I won't be safe. Of course, I know I'll be safe, but that's a really primitive thing that shows up for us. There's a part of our primitive brain that is hardwired for safety and control. So, this is the part of me that spent a lifetime trying to outrun pain and trying to fix everything and trying to hold it all together so that I don't get left behind, right? That's all that primitive part of our brain. So, in that moment, I could feel my inner critic gripping my mind and my nervous system so tightly. And right, it felt like I was being pulled under. So, but I know that that's Wilhelmina. I know that's my inner critic, right? So this time was different because my authentic self rose up. And that is from all the years of inner work that led me to this moment to be able to create a space between who I know I am and all that shame and all that fear and all that feeling that I wasn't safe, right? So that doesn't make all of that nervous system reactivity any easier, but what it does is it makes it transformative. So instead of reacting, instead of merging with all of that fear and shame, instead of chasing after their disappointment to make it disappear, I chose to sit with it. So we were at a vortex called Bell Rock, right? It's one of the 7 vortexes of the world. Now, if you've never heard of a vortex before, It's a powerful energy center in nature, and it's known to amplify spiritual connection and healing and transformation. And people often say that they feel a deep sense of clarity and openness and release just by being there. So I went to Bell Rock and I sat down under a tree by myself and I just let everything get quiet. And then I asked a question that really cracked something wide open inside of me. And the question was, what if I didn't have to be perfect to be safe? And everything got still. And that one question pulled back yet another layer on the never ending curtain that is Wilhelmina's never ending story. Now, the never ending story, that's the end step of the mind method. So, her story that's lived inside of me for as long as I can remember is the one that whispers that I have to be loved and approved of. And I have to make sure that I'm always loved and approved of to feel safe. That I have to keep performing and protecting and proving myself so that I won't be left behind. So, in that stillness, something deeper emerged. And this is a truth that actually had been waiting for me for my whole life. And that is that it is that vulnerability that is actually the bridge to real safety. And that's a kind of truth that can't be taken away because it's anchored deep inside of me. I don't need to do anything to be worthy. Just my being is enough. I'm safe without performing. I'm safe without proving. I don't have to bypass or escape my inner critic's discomfort when someone is disappointed or upset with me. Now, even though the urge to fix everything was alive and loud, I didn't move. I stayed. I breathed through the shaking in my chest. I let my nervous system hold what my mind, right, that my automatic mind has always tried to outrun. And in that moment, I shed yet another layer of that never ending message, of that old story I've been carrying around for my whole life. Because now here's the truth about being on a retreat. Everything that happens is a mirror. It's never random. Everything that happens is there to show you something about yourself. So for each of us, for all 14 of us, that mirror was powerful, it was raw, it was vulnerable, and it was uncomfortable. But that's why you go on retreat. Because on the other side of that discomfort is expansion. And just so you know, you don't need to go on a retreat at all to get on the other side of discomfort. You just need to be willing to sit in your own discomfort and let your discomfort be the bridge. So what I'm expanding into is an even deeper embodied knowing that I no longer need to carry the energy of I have to prove my worth. That story is really dissolving. And I'm learning to move from an inner compass, not from the hunger for outer validation that my inner critic has craved for my whole life. So I can actually be at peace and feel safe even when someone's disappointed or their expectations aren't met because my safety no longer lives in someone else's reaction, it lives inside of me. So Wilhelmina always wants external proof that I'm enough. She always craves that validation. It's that dopamine hit that comes when somebody reflects back my worth. But the truth of who I am doesn't need to be proven. It's already whole. And that's what's available. That's what's available to you. So when I turn inward to my authentic self, I know I no longer need to chase what's already meant for me. I can trust my path step by step by step, even when it's quiet, even when that path is slow, even when I can't see what's coming, even when it seems like nothing's coming. So when I'm faced with words or actions that would normally hook me back into Wilhelmina's never-ending message, unhooking looks different now. Again, not about proving or fixing, it's about pausing and breathing and remembering that I'm already safe as I am. My worth, my impact aren't something I have to earn, they already exist. So that's the pause where you actually create the space between you and your inner critic. And that in that space, that's where you can hear your authentic self speaking clearly, steadily, calm, and certain. Now, so this is the power of the work. This is the power of the mind method. The mind method is certainly not the only way to do this work. There's a lot of different ways to do this work. But it's not about silencing your inner critic. It's about hearing her voice and remembering that she's just showing up because that's what you thought you needed to be in order to be safe. And that's not the truth of who you are. So if you're hearing yourself in what I'm sharing, I want you to know something. You can unhook yourself from your pressure of urgency. You know, that urgency, that voice that tells you you're behind, you're running out of time, you should have done it differently, right? The voice that says you have to prove yourself. That's not your truth. That's your inner critic. And your inner critic doesn't trust that what is meant for you cannot be missed. So if you feel tangled in her grip right now, she's spinning stories about the unknown and the future, and she's dragging you down the rabbit hole of worst case scenarios. This time, this discomfort that you're experiencing, this is not a mistake. This discomfort is not a punishment. This discomfort is your portal. When you can soften into stillness and just take slow, gentle steps and stop outrunning the storm, you enter into sacred territory because these uncomfortable moments are not blocks to your path. They are the path. Your inner critic can actually become your greatest teacher if you meet her differently. She's not here to destroy you. She's here to reveal where you've been protecting yourself instead of expanding. Because your inner critic is your portal, right? She can show up and she's really taking you to your authentic self so that your authentic self can guide you to shed what no longer fits in your life. Shedding old identities, old defenses, old habits of control where you've got to control what other people think or how you're perceived. You know, that once kept you safe, but it's no longer serving who you're becoming. So when you can witness her instead of becoming her, you reclaim your power. You return to your intuitive knowing. You allow your emotions, all the emotions, especially the uncomfortable emotions, to flow instead of resisting them or bypassing them or merging with them and believing them. So, in that space where you can just witness those emotions, where you can witness your discomfort and your pain and your shame and your embarrassment, a whole new inner environment is born. And that inner environment is one where you no longer have to just survive, but you can actually thrive. So there is an art to honoring that quiet, consistent power of persistence in creating the space between you and your inner critic, right? not merging with that frantic kind of energy that your inner critic demands, but the steady daily practice to your becoming. So, meeting your inner critic every day as your guide. That's the M step of the mind method, meeting your inner critic as the guide, not as the enemy, recognizing she's here to help you strip away what no longer fits. And then the I step is investigating the indication signs, investigating those feelings, those emotions of shame and guilt and anger and sadness and fear. Investigating the body sensations, investigating the habits and the behaviors that your inner critic creates. And then the never-ending message emerges. And when you engage in the M and the I and the N step repeatedly, 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 you get to the D step, which is design your life. As you keep ongoingly meeting your inner critic, investigating her indication signs that she's gripped you, neutralizing that never-ending message, you design a life that surpasses what you could have ever imagined. So ask your inner critic powerful questions. What part of me am I ready to shed? What part of my path am I ready to allow? What old pain can I find gratitude for because it shaped who I'm becoming? Where can I stop running from the pain and trust that joy and possibility are already finding me? How can I sit in my deepest fears, my deepest shame, my deepest heartbreak? How can I trust it all? How can I hold it all? So, even if you weren't with me in Sedona, you're on a journey too. I know you are just because you're listening to me and you're watching me. So you can envision yourself right there at the Bell Rock Vortex with me, feeling the earth beneath you, feeling the stillness in the air. You could do this when you're on your couch, when you're in your car, when you're walking outside. So I just want to leave you with a practice today, a way to meet your inner critic just like I met her yet again under that tree. So maybe find a quiet space and sit down and close your eyes and take slow, deep breaths in and out. And imagine sitting with your inner critic. See her face. Look into her eyes and say, I see you. I know how hard you've been working to keep everyone happy so you won't be left behind. I know what it's like to be terrified that someone might decide that you're not enough. And watch her reaction. Maybe she cries. Maybe she looks away. Maybe she doesn't trust that she'll be safe, and that's all okay. And you can gently extend your hand or your arms to her, and you could say, you've never had to earn love by being more, even when they left you. It was never proof that you weren't enough. Even when you acted horribly, even when you made that mistake, even when you hurt someone, even when you did that horrible thing, you've always been worthy. Even with your ugliest, messiest parts of yourself. So you can wrap your arms around her and you can whisper to her, you are safe now. No one can take your worth away. Just breathe this in, let it land in your nervous system. And now imagine walking towards your inner critic and seeing her walk towards you. and let her step into your chest. Let her merge with your authentic self, not to be erased, but to reclaim her. Because underneath her fear lives her joy, her creativity, her brilliance, her spark. That's really your authentic self. And you can let your inner critic self know, I am enough. Even when someone walks away, their leaving doesn't define my value. And if waves of emotion come after this, if you hear your inner critic coming back on the scene, that's not regression. That's just her echo. That's just the echo of your inner critic. And you can return right here to witnessing her over and over and over again because she's not going anywhere. So just keep repeating the ability to meet her again and again and again. This is how you rewire your reflexive desire to run from the pain. This is how you rewire your ability to stand safely inside it. This is how you literally rewire your brain, your nervous system. This is how you anchor into your wholeness. See, your authentic self has entirely different thoughts and entirely different beliefs and an entirely different view of who you really are and what you're really capable of in your life. So take one last deep breath and remind yourself, I am safe, I am enough, and I belong to myself. So, if this message resonated with you, if you felt like you were sitting at the vortex with me, I want to invite you to go deeper into this work. Our next Mastering Your Mind program begins in December 2025, and the next Mind Method certification program begins in November 2025. If you're watching this video after those dates, no worries. You can still reach out to find out when the next enrollment period begins. So to learn more and to apply, go to masteringyourmind.com, send me a message directly, schedule some time to connect with me because I certainly would love to connect with you. Thanks for tuning in today.